Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Ever get the feeling that news stories come and go faster than they used to? Ask anyone in the news business. It's real. The O.J. story lasted about a year. Now it feels like there's an O.J. a week. Maybe it's the effect of staring at screens all day, jumping from snippet to snippet. Our brains have been rewired to think only in the present tense. Or maybe there's just a lot more news than there used to be. Some world historic crisis hits every 4 days, knocking the last world historic crisis from our collective consciousness forever. Once upon a time, people had a chance to digest their disasters. The Titanic, for example, sank in April of 1912. In 1982, the New York Times ran a front-page feature about Titanic survivors. 70 years later, people still remembered the story. Can you remember what happened 70 days ago? How about 56 days ago? Think back to that cobweb-shrouded period in our history. It was January of 2019. The federal government had just shut down. The president said we needed a border wall. The Democrats scoffed at him. They claimed the entire immigration crisis was, quote, manufactured. The news media heartily weighed in on that debate. In case you can't remember whose side the media took, here's a clip from our archives.
Folks, the president has manufactured one heck of a political crisis for himself.
Donald Trump is manufacturing a national security crisis.
You will hear them say is that this is a manufactured crisis. It's not a national security crisis.
From Nancy Pelosi down to Debbie Wasserman Schultz or anybody else who will give him a dime for this project.
Because it's manufactured.
It's a manufactured crisis for the president to get a political win.
We have a president who will go on TV tonight and lie and lie and lie some more. This is a manufactured crisis.
All together now. Manufactured crisis. 6 syllables. Learn them, dear robots. Repeat them until they seem plausible. Move on. They'll never remember you lied. And that's exactly what they did. It's what they always do. But reality has an unpleasant habit of reinserting itself into these things. You can dismiss a crisis as manufactured, but that doesn't mean the crisis doesn't exist. In the last month, 76,000 illegal aliens crossed the U.S.-Mexico border. That's the highest number in more than a decade. That's more than the entire population of San Francisco or Boston or Washington, D.C. every single year, coming by foot over just one of our international borders. That is a crisis, manufactured or not. How are the people in charge responding to this crisis? Well, they're still lying. And not just lying, because that's never enough for them. They're lying and sneering at the same time, all with maximum self-righteousness. They're selling us a steaming load of BS and screaming at us for not believing it. Here's young pioneer Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez letting you know that if you want your border secured, you're a bad American. The good Americans are the ones trying to sneak into America.
The president should not be asking for more money to an agency that has systematically violated human rights. The president should be really defending why we are funding such an agency at all. Those women and children trying to come here with nothing but the shirts on their back to create an opportunity and to provide for this nation are acting more in an American tradition than this president is right now.
Yeah, they're the real Americans. Well, Ocasio-Cortez expanded on this on Twitter last night. She denounced any Democrat who might be tempted to compromise in any way on immigration. Only open borders are morally acceptable. Quote, where was the concern last week when 26 Democrats voted for a GOP amendment to expand ICE powers rooted in the racist plus false trope that Latino immigrants are more dangerous than U.S.-born citizens? Ocasio-Cortez continued this way, quote, the entire premise of a wall is not based in fact. It's based in a racist plus non-evidence-based trope that immigrants are dangerous. Yet some Dems are willing to compromise and spend billions on a trope because we've accepted some kind of racism as realpolitik in America, end quote. Racist! White supremacist! Anyone who disagrees with me is a Nazi. How tired are you of screeching like this? How boring has it become? Well, not to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She thinks it's fresh and cutting edge. She thinks she's the future. In fact, she's completely out of touch. She has no idea what America is like. Her tiny little world of fair trade coffee shops is thriving. She thinks everyone lives like her. That's how closed her mind is. She is the oldest 29-year-old in history. For millions of other people, the country they grew up in is crumbling. Bad immigration policy is not the only reason for that, but it's a major reason for it. Every year in America, drug overdoses kill more Americans than the entire Vietnam War. Now, one of the main causes of that is fentanyl, much of which is smuggled across the Mexican border. In all of fiscal year 2013, the Fed seized a total of 2 pounds of fentanyl. That's enough to kill 450,000 people. In 2018, last year, Customs seized 1,747 pounds of fentanyl. That is almost 900 times as much. It's enough to kill 396 million people. That's more people than live in the United States and Canada combined. Now, if that bothers you, are you a racist? Ocasio-Cortez and the rest of the morons say, yes, you are. Everyone else understands that borders are what make a country. If you can't control who enters, you are a failed state. Just this morning, DHS Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen put it in perspective. She said that illegal arrivals at the Mexican border are set to hit 1 million by the end of this fiscal year. More illegals will come in the first 6 months of 2019 this year than came in all of 2017. That's a crisis. It's also a humanitarian catastrophe.
Today's migrant flows have created a humanitarian catastrophe. In one study, more than 30% of women reported sexual assault along the way, and 70% of all migrants reported experiencing violence. Very unfortunately, because of the increase in violence at ICE, when we have families with children, we have to give every girl a pregnancy test over 10. This is not a safe journey.
Wait, what? It's not safe to walk through the Sonoran Desert? Migrants get raped trying to sneak into America? You must be a racist if you think that. Quick, somebody tell CNN so they can denounce Nielsen as a white supremacist. Someone might believe her otherwise. Meanwhile, the border degrades. Unaccompanied minors keep showing up here. Word has gotten out that almost nobody will ever be deported from this country. Just claim asylum and get released. Everyone in Central America knows this. Why wouldn't they? Since 2000, the number of pending immigration court cases has gone from barely 100,000 to more than 800,000. About 22 million illegal immigrants already live in the United States. That's more people than the populations of 16 U.S. states combined. That is more than the entire New York City metropolitan area, just of people here illegally. But remember, it's not a crisis. It's a guaranteed Democratic majority for the next 100 years. And that's a good thing. Ask CNN.